Daniel first noticed it on a gray Tuesday morning. A square of neon orange clung to his windshield like a wound that refused to be ignored. The words were stamped in bold, capital letters. Vehicle will be towed if not removed. He stood frozen on the cracked pavement, coffee cooling in his hand. His car wasn't blocking anything. He had parked in the same spot for months, the one just outside his townhouse. At first, he tried to laugh it off. Maybe a mistake. Maybe meant for someone else. He peeled the notice free, the paper tearing slightly in his grip. That evening, however, another appeared. This time, the tone was sharper, almost mocking. Final warning. His neighbor, Mrs. Klein, shuffled by with her tiny dog. She glanced at the paper, then at him, lips pressing into a thin, cautious smile. "Don't make them angry," she whispered, tugging her dog away. Daniel frowned. Them? The following morning, a third notice gleamed in the dawn light. 3 days, 3 warnings, each one deliberate, each one placed with precision, like a calling card. He sat in his car longer than usual, gripping the steering wheel, his reflection staring back in the rearview mirror. The warnings weren't about parking at all. No, this was different, targeted, personal. The neighborhood always seemed quiet, almost too quiet, but suddenly the silence felt watchful, predatory. Every drawn curtain, every shadowed porch light became a pair of eyes. Daniel crumpled the notice in his fist, heart hammering. This wasn't about rules. It was about power. And someone had just declared war. The notices burned in Daniel's pocket as he stepped into the community center. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, and the faint smell of stale coffee clung to the air. Folding chairs were arranged in stiff rows, half filled with neighbors who spoke in hushed tones, their glances darting toward the long table at the front. At its center sat Evelyn Hart, the HOA president. Her posture was perfect, her smile thin and polished. Beside her, board members shuffled papers, nodding at every word she murmured as though rehearsed. When it was Daniel's turn to speak, he rose, heart thudding. "There must be some mistake," he said. "I've parked in the same spot for months. These warnings feel targeted." Evelyn tilted her head, lips curving into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Mistake? No, Mr. Rowe. Rules are rules. You violated Section 12, improper vehicle placement." Her voice was honeyed but sharp. "Consider this your final chance to comply." A ripple of murmurs passed through the room. One man coughed, muttering under his breath. "Funny, her brother's truck blocks the fire lane every week." Another neighbor leaned closer to Daniel as he sat down, whispering, "They don't find their own, only the rest of us." Daniel's chest tightened. Favoritism, secrets, hidden debts. As the meeting dragged on, Evelyn's gaze kept returning to him, lingering too long, like a cat watching prey. Each time their eyes met, her smile deepened, smug, knowing. When the session ended, chairs scraped, conversations bubbled, but Daniel remained still. He watched Evelyn glide out of the room, a stack of papers tucked neatly under her arm. On top, in red ink, he glimpsed his name. His pulse quickened. This wasn't bureaucracy. It was something calculated, something personal. And for the first time, he wondered what Evelyn was hiding outside the safety of these walls. The night was heavy with silence when Daniel caught the sound of footsteps outside his window. He parted the blinds just enough to see figures moving in his driveway. The street lamp cast Evelyn in a pale glow. Her blazer traded for a dark coat. Beside her stood a man Daniel recognized. Carter Briggs, a local contractor with a reputation for cutting corners and cutting deals. They spoke in low voices, too faint to catch, but Daniel's breath stilled as Carter handed her a thick envelope. Evelyn flipped through the papers quickly, then slipped something small, cash maybe, into her pocket. She glanced around, sharp and paranoid, before resting her hand on Carter's arm as though sealing a pact. Daniel ducked back, heart hammering. This isn't about my car. This is bigger. Corruption. Money changing hands right here in my driveway. The next morning, he cautiously tested the waters with Mrs. Klein. She hesitated before whispering, "She fined me $600 last year for a rose trellis." But when her friend built a second garage, not a word. Her voice trembled, but her eyes lit with relief at finally speaking aloud. Word spread quietly. Over coffee at mailboxes, in hurried conversations on sidewalks, neighbors shared fragments of Evelyn's reign. Selective fines, unexplained fee hikes, and deals made in shadows. Each story chipped away at the picture-perfect image Evelyn worked so hard to project. One man clenched his fists. She nearly bankrupted us over a paint color. But her cousin's house? Bright yellow. No fines. Daniel listened, collecting their grievances like pieces of evidence, each one fitting into a puzzle that looked less like neighborhood management and more like a personal empire. By dusk, he no longer felt alone. The whispers had become a chorus, a fragile alliance forming in the cracks of Evelyn's control. And Daniel knew. The next move would have to be public. Daniel woke to the grind of chains and the roar of an engine outside. He rushed to the window. A tow truck idled in front of his house, its hook already clamped to his car. Evelyn stood nearby, arms folded, her expression carved from stone. He bolted outside. "You can't do this." Daniel shouted, voice raw. "There was no vote, no notice. This is illegal." Evelyn's smile was cold. "Some lessons must be taught," she replied, nodding to the driver. But before the truck could move, Daniel held up his phone. The screen displayed grainy video. Evelyn in his driveway at midnight, exchanging papers and envelopes with Carter Briggs. Gasps rippled to the gathering neighbors, drawn by the commotion. "You call this leadership?" Daniel's voice carried, trembling with fury. "You fine us for fences and flowers, but line your pockets in secret deals?" Murmurs swelled into shouts. Mrs. Klein stepped forward, clutching her dog. "She made me pay for that trellis, while her friends broke every rule." Another neighbor's voice cracked. "She nearly cost us our home." Evelyn's composure faltered as the crowd closed in. Her allies on the board shifted uncomfortably, refusing to meet her gaze. The driver unhooked Daniel's car and backed away slowly, sensing the tide had turned. For the first time, silence did not protect Evelyn. It betrayed her. The people she controlled were no longer afraid. Daniel felt the shift, fragile but real, as the neighborhood turned on its queen. And he knew the war had just begun. The days after confrontation felt like walking through smoke. Evelyn vanished in the streets. Her resignation posted quietly on the HOA bulletin board, but her absence did not bring peace. Neighbors who once whispered now argued openly. Old grievances, dragged into the light, refused to fade. Mrs. Klein stopped speaking to the family across the street. A board member was accused of enabling Evelyn's schemes. His windows egged one night in silent judgment. Daniel had become the unwilling center of it all. Some thanked him, pressing his hand with relief. Others eyed him with suspicion, as though toppling Evelyn had given him too much power. He carried their expectations like a weight strapped to his chest. Late one evening, he stood in his driveway, staring at the car that had started everything. The orange notices were gone, but the memory of them clung like scars. Justice had come, Evelyn exposed, her grip broken. Yet the neighborhood felt fractured, fragile, as if one more spark could set it ablaze again. Daniel whispered to the dark, "What did we win, really?" No answer came, only silence, heavy, endless. The war was over, but peace had not returned.